Hello, and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Barjo.
And I'm Hex.
Well, Hex, we're approaching that time of year, the holiday season, where we avoid the sun and stay indoors and try and catch up on all those games that we haven't finished off yet. Is there anything on your list of to-do?
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to emerge from Skyrim for a very long time. You know, all my social networking news feeds are just filled with talk of dragons. You know, it's impossible to escape that world right now.
Yeah, such a big game, isn't it? I think we're going to live there for quite a while. But, you know, after finishing Dark Souls, I feel such a sense of loss, and I feel quite strange. So I think I'm going to go back and give Demon Souls another crack, and hopefully I won't rage quit this time, Souls.
Yes, it'll be nice to relax over summer with, ironically, more gaming. But we do have a few big games to review first. This week on the show, we save the world from World War III in the latest Call of Duty game, Modern Warfare 3.
And the latest Need for Speed has pulled up, and we jump in, and it's called The Run.
Plus, we throw a few dwarves in with Lord of the Rings, War in the North.
Not a bad lineup for our penultimate episode of the year, Hex. But first, can you guess the game for this week?
It is night as you enter the city, and it seems strangely deserted.
Hex, did you see the poll results about the tutu and who has to wear the tutu in this episode?
I think it's rigged, to be honest. Somebody tampered with the results. To read the news.
Internet polls do not lie.
Good game.
A Belgian university study has revealed that gaming increases activity in the brain's motivation and reward centre, known as the ventral striatum. The study observed the MRI scans of over 150 14-year-olds, half of whom were regular gamers. The regular gamers were found to have a higher volume of neurons in the ventral striatum, which produces dopamine, a transmitter of pleasure in the brain that is also linked to addiction. Following their protest against the stabbing of a virtual rat in Battlefield 3, animal rights group PETA has now accused Nintendo of encouraging people to wear animal fur. The group has singled out Super Mario 3D Land, in which Mario dons the Tanuki suit power-up, which is designed to make him look like a raccoon dog. Nintendo has responded to the claims, simply stating that Mario's transforming power-ups are only intended to be light-hearted and whimsical. A resourceful gamer in the US has managed to enlist Logan Cunningham, the memorable voice actor from indie game Bastion, to narrate his very own wedding.
You ain't likely to find a nicer couple than the famous Mr. and Mrs. Greshner.
Gamer Jay Greshner sent an email to developer Supergiant Games and was surprised to find the company was more than happy to cooperate, arranging for Cunningham to record a number of lines that were then played during the ceremony, much to his wife's surprise.
The bride and groom seal the deal as the crowd goes wild.
Digital distribution service Steam has fallen foul of hackers, with users' personal information, including email addresses and encrypted credit card details, being accessed. Valve CEO Gabe Newell has said that there is no evidence of any credit card misuse or of users' accounts being compromised, but has urged customers to change their passwords and monitor credit card statements.
Good game.
What did the sorcerer mean when he said we were too late?
Perhaps he was only trying to discourage us.
The Fellowship of the Ring may have been the heroes that journeyed to Mount Doom to destroy the Ring of Power, but in Lord of the Rings War in the North, there is another fellowship that deserves a bit of recognition for their part in the fight against the Dark Lord.
In War in the North, three companions act as the B team, the Fellowship's Black Ops, if you will, who embark on their own quest across Middle-earth through a series of stunning locations, some of which you may remember from the books, but were never featured in the films.
You know, it's rare to see three-player co-op in a game, but it's actually done really well here. The three characters to choose from are Farron, a dwarf champion who is your tank,
Dwarf is upon you!
Andriel, an elf lore master, and Eridan, a human ranger. Each character has their own tech tree, which will allow you to customize their strength in specific areas, depending on how you want to play them. As Lore Master, I chose to put my points into magical combat as well as healing, but you could give her an even heavier hitting battle mage focus if you wanted to.
Each character has additional skills. They can find character-specific rooms with treasure bonuses. As a dwarf, I can mine for gems to use in crafting, and the Lore Master can gather herbs to craft into potions. Each class plays quite well. I did find the combat a bit repetitive at the start though, and that is until you put in a few skill points and unlock some abilities that let you flesh out your fighting style in a way that suits your playstyle.
I need more time.
Yeah, I suppose it would have been nicer to have some of those skills unlock a little bit more quickly, just so that we had that meatier combat a little bit earlier on in the game. I just loved watching Andriel in action though. She has some cool area of attack spells and a hefty kick, and watching her swing that staff around is just so badass. But you know, I didn't spec her as a tank, so often I just hang back and blast magical fire from my staff. I used Sanctuary a lot too. It's a useful healing spell that also provided a shield from enemy ranged attacks. Come on in, guys. It's all combat that lends itself wonderfully to co-op play, and this really is a game you need to play with your friends.
Yeah, the AI does do a fine job of looking after you, but the point of this experience is to play with your friends, and that's where you get the most out of this game. I quite like being a dwarf hex rolling about the place, and those slow motion critical kills.
The Ranger deals some epic damage with bows too, and if you can nail a few headshots, you can potentially deal more damage than the tank in any given fight. And if you go down in battle, you can crawl to your teammates so that they can revive you. Well, if they're nice. A little bit further. Oh, you can do it.
Keep going.
Come on.
If one of your party members dies completely though, it restarts at a checkpoint, so it means that no one's out of the fight for too long. Enemies range from orcs and goblins, to dark wizards, to angry trolls, and they have a tendency to get a little on the repetitive side. It's nicely challenging, but sometimes it feels as though they haven't really thought about how to make these fights interesting. They've just thrown a bunch of trolls in with a few Urukai to grief you, room after room after room.
They do change things up a bit with those little suicide bomber goblins, the use of mounted crossbows, and the ability to call on Belaram to assist with an enemy. However, you need an eagle feather to do this, and they're not plentiful, so use his help wisely.
I laughed at most of those Belaram cutscenes, Hex. He's so formal and serious, but then you suddenly realize you're talking to a giant bird.
For my part, I would gladly join in the hunt for Agandar. Yet, I have my duty to consider.
He's so cool, though.
Yeah. It's great visiting those familiar locations from the books and films, meeting the gang, and then heading back to major towns or cities between areas, which will allow you to repair and restock. Characters are customizable to a point, but gender is locked, and I think they did that because they didn't want to have to double the amount of voice acting for each character.
You are my chieftain. I will gladly do whatever you command.
I'm a part of this now as well.
Then we three are of one mind. How can we aid you?
There's a constant stream of gear to be looted and purchased, so you're constantly getting grander and more impressive. Plus there are gems you can put in to boost the stats as well.
Such awesome gear in this game too. Every item you equip will make you sigh with awe. Such beautifully detailed armor pieces that perfectly reflect the look and feel of the Lord of the Rings universe, and appropriate to each race. Once again, I made my character look like a fantasy dream version of what I wished I looked like, and I wasted so much time in this game just running around and looking at myself. Look at the snow on my hair. Oh, my hair. In fact, the entire game is just breathtaking to look at. I'll admit to being a little bit dazzled by the scenery. I think I slowed things down a bit for us because I insisted on pausing at every location to do a slow pan of the landscape.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? And the locations are so varied and different. This is great fan service, and the game is so rich in that Lord of the Rings lore. The cutscenes and character conversations are so long and drawn out, though. I guess that's in keeping with the books, but everything is so formal, it just takes forever to get to the point.
Allow me to present a kinsman, Farron of Erebor, and also Andriel and Eridan, his companions. We succeeded in our task.
Skip it.
You are most welcome here, kinsman, and no less so your companions, be they man.
Skip it.
You have returned to me, my son and my oldest friend, whom already I'm...
Hurry up.
I think it is time we told our newfound friends...
Skip.
Skip. Dialogue options give you the impression of an RPG like Dragon Age, but none of your dialogue choices seem to have any consequence, so it's a bit redundant. You might as well just go with the default option or you'll just lengthen things even more.
I found the voice acting superb though. I'm fast becoming a fan of Laura Bailey, who I recognized from Hunted the Demon's Forge.
Agandar is a threat to all the free folk of the North. We must stop him, no matter what the cost.
And all the actors they chose to recreate the voices of the actors from the films were pretty much spot on.
I am Legolas, son of King Thranduil of the Woodland Realm in Mirkwood.
And, of course, it wouldn't be a complete voice cast without Nolan North. Again.
He gets around, doesn't he?
He certainly does.
I don't think we need to worry about death just yet. Look!
And the conversations we had with that dragon just gave me goosebumps, heck.
We are simple travelers making our way through these mountains.
Do you think me a fool? No one travels in the Grey Mountains without good cause.
Dragons make any scene more epic.
Yeah, they're so in right now too, aren't they? But we should wrap this up, Hex. Final thoughts?
Well, I think this game is getting a bit of a tough rap online, but I'm gonna have to go against the grain here and say that I really enjoyed it. I mean, it has its repetitive moments, but how you develop your combat style is really up to you, and you'll get out what you put in. I have to admit, I did find that final battle a little bit of a letdown, but the journey to that point was a lot of fun. I can't stress enough, though, that you need to play this with friends. I mean, this is a co-op game, and that's how you're supposed to enjoy it. So I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I was a bit disappointed they didn't make something bigger of the conversation trees. I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity, and I did find the odd bug here and there, but even so, this game really surprised me. I had a great time here. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I want to say the first one had to be Dr. J. Larry Bird on Commodore 64. Way long time ago. I used to have the tapes, and they'd sometimes load and sometimes they wouldn't. And then I moved on, to playing. I mean, I still to this day I don't understand why somebody hasn't made Castle Wolfenstein and brought a new version that's kind of similar, because I thought it was amazing. And what Wolfenstein became wasn't what I knew on the Apple. I know it was very successful, but I always wanted somebody to make the same type of adventure game that I had played on the original Apple II. The guard, he'd call you over because you had to show him a pass, and he'd turn around and you'd stab him. It was wonderful. I think it was a precursor to Metal Gear Solid.
Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is my favorite racing game of all time. It's a near perfect game, so Need for Speed The Run has some pretty big shoes to fill.
You play as Jack Rourke, a man in debt to the mob whose days are numbered. After escaping a crushing fate, you meet an old friend who can make all of your problems go away.
Word is you made a wrong turn, Jack.
All you need to do is win The Run, a coast-to-coast race from San Francisco to New York City.
You win, I will handle your problem and give you a 10% cut.
It's a good setup for a story, but it basically just becomes a premise for all the racing. You never really care about any of the characters, especially Jack with all of his complete smug face.
I'm just getting warmed up.
Some people want to kill you, so you're racing for money, and that's about as deep as it gets.
The story, however, is well presented through some on-foot action sequences, which really are just a bunch of quick-time events. But they're quite exciting, and it's a nice way to break up the racing. Plus, I liked failing them just to see what happens. But I didn't like that those sequences are what led you to finding sweet new rides. I mean, it would be better if there were more of them, but there's only 4 or 5 instances that lead you to choose new cars, and even then, there's only 3 or 4 cars to choose from.
Yeah, there's not a lot of choice. Let's talk about the racing. At first glance, it looks like Hot Pursuit. There's nitrous to earn by driving into oncoming traffic, police to take down, shortcuts to take, and Autolog is constantly reminding you that your friends are better than you. but they are very different beasts. The cars here are much weightier and slower, and it's not until you drive the last set of cars that you even come close to that sense of ultimate speed. The cops in this game will mostly leave you alone, although they do pop up now and then just to make life difficult.
Back to that, slip her block now. Target coming in. Affirmative pursuit, roadblock is good to go.
But that's not to say that the racing isn't exciting or fun, it's just different. Mostly you'll be doing standard races where you'll need to overtake a set number of cars and cross the finish, but sometimes you'll need to make up lost time and hit checkpoints before the clock runs out, or beat a rival in a one-on-one battle. And sometimes you have to drive for your life.
When you wreck your car, instead of being reset on the road, you restart at a checkpoint, and the number of restarts you have depends on your difficulty setting.
Yeah, it's a good system, but it annoyed me how quickly it restarts you for going off the road, though. Also, I still have no idea what's safe to drive through and what isn't. I mean, on one track, almost everything I drove through was fine, and on another track, everything wrecks you.
Yeah, that inconsistency is frustrating, isn't it? I like the variety in the tracks, though. There's wide open highways, tight city streets, dusty deserts, frozen mountains, and dirty country roads, just to name a few. But the most exciting tracks are the ones that are out to kill you, with avalanches or trains. This is running on the Frostbite 2 engine, so I was expecting a bit more out of it visually, but there are a lot of jaggies and also some texture loading issues, but granted we aren't on the final code, so that could change.
In terms of multiplayer, there's just a few standard racing options for up to 16 players, which is a bit of a shame. It's definitely fun, but I was hoping for a few more interesting modes. I mean, they have cops and they have the mob, why not throw in a few Hot Pursuit style events?
Yeah, it didn't really inspire that obsessive competitiveness that Hot Pursuit did with Autolog, and it does track all your stats and everything, but it doesn't, I don't know, it didn't really pull me into it like that game. There are challenge modes to unlock, but those seem to be just the same events as the main story, except you get medals, so there's not much reason to stick around once you've clocked the main run, which will only take around 5 to 6 hours.
I think it's hard not to come off a bit harsh on the run when comparing it to Hot Pursuit, but if taken for what it is, I think it's still an exciting if short-lived arcade racer, so I'm giving it 7 out of 10.
I don't know why they always try and do a story with racing games. Just make it about the racing. No one cares about the story. There are some good parts here, but I think it's worth a 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Tell us about your art, darling.
Well, what I do is I eat only one type of food for a whole month, and then at the end of the month I take a giant shit on a dinner plate, and then I photograph it. So this here I call Eggplant April. That's Hungry Max. This one's M&M. Damn, not again.
Oh, I love it! The Call of Duty brand is now so popular and well known that it's become almost synonymous with the first-person shooter genre. In fact, we occasionally hear non-gamers refer to FPS as just Call of Duty. Well, the blockbuster of bombs and bullets is back to rake in the big bucks with Modern Warfare 3.
I'll admit, I sat down to play this game with my Battlefield hat on. I know I'm a Battlefield fanboy, and with good reason, because it's awesome. But after a few hours with this campaign, I slowly took that hat off, because I started to remember just why Modern Warfare 2 was so addictive, more so than Black Ops, and it's because of that instant, fast-paced online action and those big explosive moments in the single-player campaign.
From the moment you pick this up, no matter what controls you're using, your mouse or gamepad just fuses to you in a symbiotic relationship that will see you proning and nading and strafing like a pro. But let's start with the story. Modern Warfare 3 is a direct sequel to Modern Warfare 2, and throughout the campaign you'll see some familiar faces, such as the tashy Captain Price and Soap, who has a weird name, which is why we remember him.
Hex, I tried so hard to follow the story this time around. I listened to every single bit of loading screen dialogue and every single story moment. I wrote it down and I tried to follow it and I looked at my notes and still I have no idea what's going on except Russia are invading the world and they want all the things.
Well, that's pretty much it, Barjo. The single-player campaign is a little under 6 hours, but it's a seriously exciting ride. You need to take breaks occasionally, though, because it's such a frantic pace all the way through. I've never seen such crazy action in a shooter before. At every step there's something crashing, or falling apart around you, or exploding, and before you even have time to work out why it was exploding, the next exploding thing grabs your attention.
All the helicopters in this game are doomed. They all blow up. You can't trust them. In fact, you can't trust anything. Oh, look at this. This is a nice plane. I wonder what. Oh, explosions. Oh, it's broken in half. Oh, this is a beautiful Eiffel Tower. Oh, explosions. It's broken, falling over. I think what's remarkable here, though, is the seamless way they pull you through this game. It's very light on quick time events, and there's no hand-holding here. There is the odd bit of when will this wave end, but there are some truly inspired setups, such as Inception Plane, and this incredible car chase. Excellent levels, Hex.
Yeah, they're very flashy and very impressive. I didn't really like those stealth sections though, Barjo. Those bits just felt like waiting, moving a bit, then waiting, and they hurt the pace of the game. I mean, it felt like they were just there because stealth is an expected part of the formula.
Yeah, but how good is that AI? It just felt so reactive here, much better than previous CODs.
Yeah, the AI is definitely solid. If you race ahead, your teammates will catch up intelligently. Then if you fall behind, when you reach them, it won't look like they're stuck there waiting for you. Many melee kills can't help but feel a little bit unfair though. Your teammates just won't look after you.
I have to rant a bit about the graphics though, Hex. Even on console it's a little bit disappointing, but especially on PC, which has such limited graphics settings. It only goes up to 4 times AA. I can't remember the last game that had that kind of restriction. This is definitely a console port.
Yeah, it's hardly a bad looking game though. I mean, there's an amazing amount of polish to the engine.
There is, but I guess I'm talking more about the textures and the lighting and the shadows. You know, I just want all that to be more complex. And it's not a bad thing that we find this dated now, visually. Games are so good now. It's impossible not to compare this to Battlefield when it's come out in such close proximity, and it just raised the bar in both those departments. I guess a good example is the grenade sounds. When a grenade goes off in this game, it's kind of nothing, you don't really notice it. But when it goes off in Battlefield, that impact on your senses is so intense. So I just really found myself missing that sound design more than anything else. But let's move on to the multiplayer. Call of Duty has shaped the online shooter landscape ever since COD 4 came out, so we were very keen to see what Modern Warfare 3 was going to do.
We played this mostly on PC, and while we were happy to find that there are now dedicated servers, we were completely baffled to find that they were only unranked. This will of course help out those who just want to war and play competitively because they won't have to find a reliable peer-to-peer host first, but I mean it's just like they're actively trolling PC gamers who really just want dedicated.
Yeah, peer-to-peer PC matchmaking is so unreliable. It's only as reliable as your weakest ping, and it just takes one person to ruin the whole experience. I don't know why they're not doing it. I don't think I sat in a single round without someone complaining about lag. In my personal experience with this game though, I think it was better than Modern Warfare 2. I spent half that game just trying to get a match, but here I think it is more reliable, but even so, Rage Central.
But, you know, jumping into an online game is a super quick process. You can have a match loading within 10 seconds of launching the game because of the functional, albeit ugly menus. And you also level up your weapon so that the more you use a gun, the more things you'll unlock for it, some of which are actually perks.
And now you have the choice in your streaks too, Assault, Support, or Specialist. Assault is your usual choppers and Predator drones. Support will let you put down flak jackets for the entire team, as well as other defensive measures. And Specialist will let you gain extra perks the more kills you get. The good thing about Support is if you're not very good at getting those kill streaks, they don't reset upon death with that pack, so you can still feel like you're contributing to the team.
All the multiplayer modes are back with a new one called Kill Confirmed. In this mode, if you kill someone, it won't count towards your team's score unless you collect their dog tags before the enemy does. It gives you something extra to think about and forces people to come out of hiding. So it's quite fast-paced and not really a mode for anyone who likes to, you know, sit back and snipe.
The levels I found were quite detailed, and I think I preferred the slightly bigger ones more. They all feel very familiar though, almost like they're straight out of Call of Duty 4 or Modern Warfare 2, like they've used some of those assets and areas, and so some of the impact was lost for me because there wasn't one which really stood out. But I think they'll grow on me, and they are all quite balanced, and there's very few spawn location problems, and plenty of sniper spots and choke points to battle over.
There is monthly DLC promised for this game though, so there are more maps to come. There's also the new COD Elite service, which had a bit of a rough start and we weren't actually able to check any of it out due to it being throttled, but the free version of COD Elite has some nice features, especially if you're in a clan. The paid version is going to be for those who are serious about clan customization and sharing longer videos of their exploits online and learning strategies, but yeah, we haven't been able to test out any of this yet.
The good news is theatre mode is back regardless of whether you're a member of COD Elite or not, and it just records every single move you make without any impact to your system, and it's just fantastic. I wish every shooter had this. But before we wrap this up, we should talk about one of the best things about this game, which is Spec Ops.
Yes, and there are two parts to this. Survival is where you face off against waves of suicide bombers. Airstrikes, standard and heavy goons until you can't take any more. It's a well-made wave mode with all the usual features we've come to expect, but then there are other missions.
Yes, and these are excellent, and there's heaps of them. Many are based around moments from the campaign, and you'll really need to communicate with your partner to get through them and retrieve intel.
That was stressful. Careful, there's another turret out there still.
Rescue hostages, save the president. There's stealth and covering missions too. They've done an excellent job with them, but we should wrap this up, Hex. Final thoughts?
Well, I think fans will like the multiplayer changes. You know, scoring feels a little bit more balanced than Blop, so you could just steamroll if you got a few lucky breaks. The first few hours online are pretty tough, but it gets better really quickly, and it's a satisfying quick fix shooter. I just didn't feel like it was different enough to really lose your brain over, so I'm giving it a healthy 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel different enough online at all, does it? They've stuck to what works and refined it a bit, but it's still quite samey. You do feel like you're always achieving something though, and that single player campaign is just excellent, and I love Spec Ops, so I think it's worth an 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
We recently caught up with Robert Bowling from Infinity Ward to chat about the game, and that full interview is on our website.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week? It was Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, an action RPG for the PS2 from 2001. It was a pretty good monster-bashing D&D romp developed by Snowblind Studios, who brought us the Lord of the Rings War in the North.
Well, Hex, in our final episode next week, we were going to give away the life-size Batman, but I've gone through all of the entries, and we're just going to have to keep them, I think, because we just didn't get enough, and they just weren't right. There was some counting technical errors in the
I'm sorry,
application
we got
forms.
quite a few entries, some really good ones, in fact. There's definitely a winner there.
Keep them. You have to keep them.
Bajo, you can't keep the Batman. We will be announcing the winner in next week's Christmas special. It's going to be a huge 1-hour episode filled with reviews of Rayman Origins, Halo Anniversary, plus we'll give out our Good Game Awards for 2011 and our review of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
Kind of backfired on you there, didn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Until next week, gamers, Bajo out.
Hex out.
That's your wand. You look very pretty.